A quiet moment can change an entire life, and it often begins with the one person everyone believed would always understand, always forgive, and always stay. What happens when the kindest person in the room suddenly stops caring? Most people expect an explosion of anger. They expect revenge, harsh words, or one final argument that ends everything. But that is almost never how the story unfolds. The real turning point is far more silent, and because it arrives without warning, it leaves everyone confused. There are no dramatic speeches, no desperate attempts to prove a point, no race to get the last word. Instead, there is distance, there is calm, there is a peace that seems almost impossible to explain. The people who once relied on endless patience suddenly realize that something has changed, but by the time they notice, it is often too late to return things to the way they were. That quiet transformation is one of the most powerful shifts a person can experience, and it reveals truths about relationships that many people never see until they lose someone who truly cared. Many people believe that caring is endless, especially when it comes from someone who is deeply compassionate. They assume kindness has no limits. They think forgiveness can always be earned one more time. They believe that the person who keeps giving will continue to give forever, no matter how much they are ignored, disappointed, or taken for granted. This belief feels comforting to those who benefit from it, but reality tells a different story. Every act of patience has a cost. Every sacrifice leaves a mark. Every moment spent carrying another person's emotional weight slowly drains the one doing the carrying. The change does not happen in a single day, and it is rarely caused by one mistake. Instead, it grows quietly through months or even years of being overlooked, misunderstood, and expected to give more while receiving less. By the time the final shift arrives, it is not driven by hatred. It is driven by exhaustion. People who identify strongly with empathic traits often experience emotions with remarkable intensity. They naturally notice the feelings of others, offer comfort without being asked, and place another person's happiness above their own. While empathy itself is a well-recognized psychological ability, many people who call themselves empaths describe living with an even stronger sense of emotional awareness. Whether someone embraces that label or simply sees themselves as deeply compassionate, one pattern appears again and again. They become the safe place for everyone else, while quietly losing sight of themselves. They excuse behavior that others would never tolerate. They give second chances until those chances become impossible to count. They carry guilt for problems they did not create. They apologize just to keep peace alive. Little by little, they convince themselves that loving someone means accepting every disappointment. From the outside, this can look like incredible strength. On the inside, it often feels like a slow and invisible battle that nobody else notices. The surprising truth is that the day an empath stops caring is usually misunderstood. Many assume that kindness has disappeared, or that compassion has turned into coldness. Yet the opposite is often true. What changes is not the ability to love. What changes is the willingness to sacrifice personal peace for people who refuse to value it. This difference is easy to miss, but once it becomes clear, every relationship begins to make more sense. Suddenly, patterns that once seemed confusing become obvious. The people who respected kindness remain close. The people who depended on endless forgiveness become uncomfortable. The silence that follows speaks louder than any argument ever could. That is why this moment feels so shocking. It exposes intentions that words were able to hide for years. Throughout this video, we will uncover the quiet process that leads to this powerful transformation. You will discover why the breaking point is almost never caused by a single event, why emotional exhaustion changes the way compassionate people see the world, and why the strongest boundary is often the one that requires no explanation at all. We will explore the hidden habits that slowly drain an empath's energy, the subtle warning signs that most people ignore until it is too late, and the unexpected reactions that appear when someone who always gave everything finally decides to protect their own peace. You will also learn why this change is not about becoming uncaring, but about developing emotional maturity, and why many relationships either become stronger or completely fall apart after this turning point. Some of these ideas may challenge what you have always believed about kindness, loyalty, and unconditional love, while others may help explain experiences that never seemed to make sense before. Make sure you stay with us until the very end, because the final lesson is the one that changes the entire meaning of this journey. It reveals the difference between genuine compassion and self-sacrifice, a difference that many people spend years trying to understand. Once you recognize it, you may never look at your relationships the same way again. The quiet decisions that seem small today can shape the rest of your life tomorrow. And by the end of this video, you will understand why the day an empath stops caring is not really an ending at all. It is often the beginning of a healthier, stronger, and more peaceful life. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy thoughtful videos about empathy, emotional strength, human psychology, and the hidden patterns behind relationships, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community, because every video is designed to help you see people and yourself from a deeper perspective. Let's begin. The life of an empath rarely begins with strong boundaries. It usually begins with an open heart. From an early age, they notice emotions that others overlook. They recognize sadness hidden behind a smile, disappointment buried beneath polite words, and fear covered by confidence. Because they naturally sense what others are feeling, they often become the person everyone turns to when life becomes difficult. Friends call them during emotional crises. Family members expect them to settle arguments. Coworkers unload their stress onto them. Even strangers sometimes feel comfortable sharing deeply personal stories within minutes of meeting them. At first, this feels like a gift. Being trusted makes them feel needed. Helping others gives them purpose. Watching someone feel better after a conversation brings genuine happiness. They do not offer kindness because they expect something in return. They simply believe that if they have the ability to ease another person's pain, they should. Over time, this generous way of living becomes part of their identity. They become the listener who never interrupts, the shoulder everyone cries on, the person who remembers birthdays, notices small changes in mood, checks in after difficult days, and stays awake late into the night just to make sure someone else feels less alone. Yet while everyone sees the comfort they provide, very few notice the quiet cost they pay for giving so much of themselves away. Listening becomes more than an act of kindness. It becomes a responsibility they carry almost every day. They answer messages immediately because they worry someone might need them. They pick up the phone even when they are exhausted because they cannot ignore the thought that another person may be hurting. They patiently hear the same complaints over and over again without asking why nothing ever changes. They allow conversations to revolve around everyone else's struggles, while their own pain waits silently in the background. They convince themselves there will always be time to deal with their own emotions later. Later turns into tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Before long, they cannot remember the last time someone asked how they were truly feeling. Their role has quietly changed from being a friend to becoming an emotional shelter, a place where everyone else finds relief while they slowly become overwhelmed by feelings that are not even their own. Forgiveness follows the same pattern. An empath often forgives long before an apology arrives. They tell themselves people make mistakes. Everyone has bad days. Everyone deserves another chance. When someone forgets an important promise, they understand. When someone speaks harshly during an argument, they excuse it as stress. When someone disappears and returns, only when they need help again, they welcome them back with the hope that this time things will be different. They keep believing that patience will eventually inspire change. Sometimes it does. Many times it does not. Yet they continue forgiving because holding on to anger feels uncomfortable. They fear that setting limits might make them appear selfish or uncaring. Little by little, they begin carrying the emotional responsibility for other people's choices. Instead of asking why someone treated them poorly, they ask themselves whether they could have been more understanding. Instead of expecting accountability, they search for reasons to justify hurtful behavior. Their compassion becomes so strong that it leaves almost no room for self-protection. This desire to fix people grows stronger with every disappointment. Whenever someone feels broken, the empath feels pulled toward helping them heal. They believe that enough love, enough patience, enough encouragement, or enough loyalty can transform almost anyone. They spend hours giving advice, offering reassurance, and trying to rebuild confidence in people who refuse to rebuild themselves. They celebrate tiny improvements while ignoring repeated setbacks. They remain hopeful even when everyone else has already walked away. Deep inside, they carry the belief that abandoning someone in pain would be wrong. What they rarely notice is that they have started confusing support with responsibility. They begin believing another person's happiness depends entirely on them. Every failure feels personal. Every bad decision made by someone they love becomes another burden placed on their own shoulders. They slowly forget a difficult truth that every healthy relationship depends on. You can support someone without carrying their entire life. While all of this is happening, their own needs quietly disappear. They postpone rest because someone else needs attention. They cancel personal plans because another person has a problem. They ignore their own sadness because someone else's sadness feels more urgent. They become so skilled at understanding everyone around them that they lose the ability to recognize when they themselves are emotionally empty. Their body begins sending quiet warnings. They feel tired even after sleeping. They struggle to enjoy activities they once loved. Small disappointments suddenly feel overwhelming. They smile while secretly wishing for just one day, without carrying another person's emotional weight. Yet instead of slowing down, they often push themselves even harder. They believe that being kind means always being available. They mistake constant sacrifice for genuine love. People-pleasing slowly becomes a habit instead of a choice. Saying yes feels easier than risking conflict. They agree to things they never wanted to do. They avoid difficult conversations because they fear disappointing someone. They apologize even when they have done nothing wrong, simply to keep the peace. They carefully choose every word to avoid upsetting others. They become experts at reading people's moods and changing their own behavior to make everyone comfortable. From the outside, they appear calm, generous, and endlessly patient. Inside, however, they are carrying an invisible pressure that grows heavier every single day. Every unspoken opinion, every ignored need, every forced smile adds another small weight. None of those moments seem important on their own. Together, they slowly become impossible to carry. That is why emotional exhaustion rarely arrives with a dramatic warning. It does not suddenly appear after one difficult afternoon. It builds quietly through thousands of ordinary moments. One more late-night phone call. One more broken promise forgiven. One more relationship where all the effort comes from one side. One more excuse made for someone who never changes. One more day spent pretending everything is fine. Each moment feels too small to matter. Yet those moments collect over months and years until the weight becomes impossible to ignore. The empath who once found joy in helping others begins feeling emotionally numb. Conversations that once filled them with compassion now leave them drained. Problems they once rushed to solve now feel painfully familiar. Their heart has not become smaller. It has simply become tired from carrying far more than it was ever meant to hold. The people around them usually miss every warning sign because the empath keeps smiling. They continue showing up. They continue listening. They continue giving. Nothing appears different on the surface. That is why the eventual change feels so sudden to everyone else. They believe the empath changed overnight, when in reality the transformation began long before anyone noticed. It started with tiny disappointments that never healed. It grew through countless moments of feeling unseen, unappreciated, and emotionally alone, even while surrounded by people. The breaking point is invisible, because it is built from ordinary days rather than extraordinary events. Exhaustion settles quietly into the heart, waiting for the moment when one question finally becomes impossible to ignore. But exhaustion alone doesn't change someone forever. The moment that changes everything is almost impossible to see from the outside. Most people expect a dramatic ending. They expect one unforgettable argument, one shocking betrayal, or one final insult that pushes the empath beyond their limit. Life is rarely that simple. The real breaking point is made from hundreds of smaller moments that barely seem important when they happen. It is every promise that was never kept. Every message left unanswered until someone needed another favor. Every apology followed by the exact same behavior. Every celebration where their efforts went unnoticed. Every time they stayed loyal while someone else offered only convenience. None of these moments seem powerful enough to end a relationship. Yet together they slowly reshape the way the empath sees the people around them. Eventually they stop asking themselves how they can save the relationship. Instead, another question quietly takes its place. Why am I the only one trying? And that single question changes everything. From that moment forward, their actions begin to change in ways that surprise everyone around them. They no longer spend hours explaining feelings that have already been ignored 100 times before. They stop chasing people who constantly walk away. They stop sending long messages trying to repair situations they did not create. They stop checking in every day just to prove they care. They stop believing it is their responsibility to fix every broken person they meet. This change is not driven by anger. It is not a plan to punish anyone. It is the quiet acceptance that no relationship can survive when only one person keeps holding it together. Healthy boundaries begin replacing endless sacrifice. They finally understand that protecting their emotional energy is not selfish. It is necessary. A boundary is not a wall built to keep good people out. It is a door that prevents constant emotional exhaustion from entering. Yet many people fail to understand this difference. This is the moment many people mistake for coldness. The silence that follows often confuses everyone who benefited from endless kindness. Those who once expected immediate replies suddenly receive none. Those who relied on unlimited patience suddenly discover that patience has limits after all. Some become desperate and try harder because they finally realize what they are losing. Others become frustrated because the relationship no longer works entirely on their terms. Some even accuse the empath of becoming distant, selfish, or different. The truth is much simpler. The empath has not stopped caring about people. They have finally started caring about themselves with the same compassion they spent years giving away. The balance has changed, and that new balance exposes every relationship exactly as it is. And that's when relationships reveal their true nature. Some people respond to these new boundaries with respect. They listen. They apologize sincerely. They make an effort to meet the empath halfway instead of expecting them to carry everything alone. Those relationships often become healthier than they have ever been because they are finally built on mutual care instead of one-sided sacrifice. Other relationships begin falling apart almost immediately. The people who only valued unlimited access become uncomfortable when they hear the word no. They lose interest once constant emotional support is no longer guaranteed. Their disappointment reveals that they love the benefits more than the person providing them. Losing these relationships can still hurt because the empath remembers the good moments as clearly as the painful ones. Yet every ending creates room for healthier connections built on honesty, respect, and shared effort. That loss can feel painful, but it also creates space. As this journey continues, one final misunderstanding remains. Many believe that the empath eventually becomes cold or emotionally distant. The opposite is usually true. They never stop caring. They simply stop abandoning themselves in order to prove they care about everyone else. Their kindness becomes intentional instead of automatic. Their trust becomes something people earn, rather than something freely given without limits. Their peace becomes valuable enough to protect every single day. They still love deeply. They still offer compassion. They still support the people who genuinely value them. The difference is that they no longer believe love requires endless suffering. This is not emotional shutdown. It is emotional maturity. And that's why everything changes. The day an empath stops caring is not really the day they lose their kindness. It is the day they finally understand that kindness should never come at the cost of their own peace. For years, they believed that loving someone meant always saying yes, always forgiving, always staying, and always putting everyone else's happiness before their own. But real love does not ask a person to lose themselves. Real compassion does not demand endless sacrifice. The greatest lesson an empath learns is that protecting their heart does not make them selfish. It makes them wiser. The people who truly value them do not walk away because of healthy boundaries. They stay. They respect those boundaries. They appreciate the effort that was always there. But the people who only benefited from endless giving often disappear the moment they realize they can no longer take without giving back. And while that loss can be painful, it also becomes incredibly freeing. It creates space for healthier relationships, deeper respect, and a life that is no longer controlled by guilt or emotional exhaustion. If today's message taught us anything, it is this. The strongest people are not the ones who keep suffering in silence forever. They are the ones who finally realize that their own well-being matters too. Choosing peace over constant struggle is not weakness. Walking away from one-sided relationships is not failure. Setting boundaries is not an act of anger. It is an act of self-respect. The strongest boundary is not spoken in anger. It is the quiet decision to protect your peace. That single decision has the power to change every relationship in your life because it reveals who truly loves you and who only loved what you could do for them. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Has there ever been a time when you gave so much that you almost forgot yourself? Or are you still learning how to protect your peace without feeling guilty? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the encouragement someone else needs today. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more topics about empathy, emotional strength, healthy boundaries, human psychology, and the hidden truths behind relationships, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. If you found this message valuable, please give this video a like and share it with someone who needs to hear these words today. You never know whose life could change because you chose to share a simple message of hope and understanding. Thank you for watching until the end. Until next time, remember this. The moment you stop abandoning yourself is the moment your real life begins.